underway in this OHL priority selection. My name is Terry Doyle. Mark McKelvey joining me here on set as well as we take you through this OHL priority selection. We're very pleased to be joined by a guest joining us remotely. And I say he's the baseball's biggest hockey fan or hockey's biggest baseball fan, one or the other. He's joining us from Ann Arbor, Michigan. There is John Morosi from MLB Network, NHL Network, you name it. And John, let's talk some hockey. I know you love talking hockey, and I'm sure you were pretty excited to see 16 Americans chosen in the OHL priority selection last night.
Most ever, of course, in the first 3 rounds, Terry and Mark. And first of all, great to be with you. I've been following your amazing coverage since last night, so well done to both of you and everybody there at the OHL. But yes, as you're describing, Terry, I was thinking about this as we came on the air. I might be the only person who has both a BBWAA writer's baseball card to get into my major league venues, and also that precious OHL credential in my Apple Wallet. So I hope that I'm the one person that has both those things, and trust me, I am equally proud of both.
And we've certainly enjoyed seeing you around the rink, and you and I got a chance to talk a lot at the Memorial Cup in Saginaw. You know, you saw that, you saw the lead up to it. You're involved in the production of the lead up to the Memorial Cup as well, and then seeing that all come together in Saginaw, and the late Josh Bloom goal, of course, to win the Memorial Cup. I've got to think, looking back, that was quite a situation there in mid-Michigan.
Really was, Terry. It was great to see you there. You get the sense that I've been to the rink now multiple times this season in Saginaw to see the banners. One of the banners, of course, notes the amount of time left in the third period when Bloom scored the goal. So I think that's something that really the Spirit organization has taken on as a big part of their identity now, and a platform from which to keep growing the game in the Great Lakes Bay region, in Michigan, certainly understanding what the responsibility was to be a Michigan-based OHL franchise, host the Memorial Cup, and then have what I would describe as one of the best sporting events certainly that I've ever seen, and undoubtedly one of the best junior hockey games that we've seen in the state of Michigan ever. It was a magnificent night of hockey, and you think too, we'll go back years from now, Terry and Mark, and look at that roster, not just the players on the Saginaw side, but on the London side too, and Dickinson and Cowan, just elite players that we'll see at the next level for a long time to come. And I think, honestly, as some of our stories do in sports, the story's only going to get better as the years go along, and the game's only going to get better as the years go along. And I know that the Spirit are very proud of what happened last year, and now, of course, with some great picks made last night, Dave Drinkle and Brian Prout and their staff are working on the next great Spirit roster.
Well, you talk about those deep rosters that were competing in that final Memorial Cup. London trying to repeat as OHL champions and finish the job, so to speak, during this postseason. But the Saginaw Spirit, their season comes to an end, but a lot of focus on Michael Misa, and you've been able to watch him very closely. As we head towards this NHL entry draft, what we saw him do last year was impressive. What we saw him do this year, just out of this world. Talk about watching his development.
Yeah, I've been so impressed by Michael, certainly. Just his ability. I think you even go from last year to this year, it's been, I think, leaps and bounds. And he was already great a year ago, but to see the player that he became, just scoring big goals, I mean, the point production itself certainly speaks volumes of the player that Michael is. But I think his ability to thrive, playing the center ice position now, I think understanding positionally. You notice, I think, his play away from the puck got even better this year. His leadership, certainly he wears the C for the Saginaw Spirit for a reason. So I think all of those elements to being more of a complete player. I think last year you think about the number of veteran players that were leading that Spirit roster, whether it was a Bloom, an Owen Beck, Braden Hache, players that had a lot of experience in the OHL, to then you look around this year and Michael and Zane Parekh realizing, okay, now it's our team. And I think both of them, we've already seen now Zane getting a chance now to join the Flames. But in Michael's case, I think just a more complete player. And it may depend on which team wins the lottery. That determines where the picks all line up, whether it's him, whether it's Schaefer. Certainly Hagen still has a good case to be made as well at the top of the draft. But I'm really curious to see how it all plays out. And I do think this is one of those years where we could have a surprise on draft night. It might almost be like the Slafkovsky draft in Montreal, where we're not really sure who it's going to be number 1 overall. And it would not surprise me at all if number 1 overall in the draft this summer is Michael Misa of the Saginaw Spirit.
John, how much fun are you having being around the OHL? And obviously, you've done a lot in baseball, but it feels like you're having so much fun being around, obviously, the National Hockey League and now with the OHL as well. Saw you were on the ice in Saginaw. You were helping out at a Windsor event as well. How much just overall fun is John Morosi having around the rink?
Well, Terry, I love it, and for me, I get a chance to just by being here in Michigan, I'm so close to so many great OHL buildings. I saw a game in Flint this year, a number of games in Saginaw. I was over in Windsor, planning on going to a game during the Windsor-Kitchener series as well. I've been to Erie's rink before too, so it's for me. And actually, I got to tell you this: you'll love this story. I brought my dad to a London Windsor game. It was maybe a week or so after the World Juniors ended. We drove up there, and my dad's in his 70s, and I said, Dad, I got to show you a game in London. This is going to be a great matchup. Two phenomenal teams. Might be an OHL championship preview, you never know, or at least Western Conference preview. And I said, Dad, we got to go. We got to go to this game. We ended up driving back in a blizzard. It took us about 4.5 hours to get back from London. I said, Dad, it was still worth it. He said, you know what, son, you're right. So it was a great experience, and I love being at the rink. I get to be, certainly I love baseball, and I'm honored and blessed to be around the ballparks every week, but there is something special about going to an OHL game, understanding just the heart of junior hockey and where it is, and also the paths and the journeys that all these players take, no matter if they're from North America, from Europe, and just the experience. I think for a lot of American families, maybe those that aren't involved in hockey, when I explain to them or my peers here in Michigan, hey, in the OHL, there's a lot of responsibility on these young men to move away from home, live with a billet, take care of yourself, nutrition, off ice, a lot of things that Ben was talking about a moment ago. It's a real education, I think, for a lot of American families to understand what it is to be a junior hockey player. And certainly now, because we're a generation on or more of Michigan-based teams in the OHL, there's I think a greater understanding of what it is. And so for me to be able to bring my dad up to a game in London this year was a real thrill for me. It was a great father-son memory. So yes, I'm a broadcaster, but I'm a fan of the game. And any chance I get to be able to bring my dad and show him around and bring my family. I brought my girls to a Saginaw Erie playoff game a couple weekends ago. That was a pretty cool memory for us as a family too.
It sounds like your dad got the real authentic experience then. If you had to travel through the blizzard, there's a few of those each OHL season. What about this draft, though, last night? You talked about the record number of Americans taken in the first 3 rounds. The landscape changing a little bit, no doubt about it. I guess we shouldn't be surprised to see that many taken on opening night.
Right, it's a great point, Mark. And certainly, I had the thought when Salandra was picked last night that might be one of the first Harvard commits ever taken that early in the OHL priority selection. But again, this is the new journey, the new rules of the sport, and where I think at the end of the day, as all of us who care about hockey are figuring out where this all lands in the future and what junior hockey looks like, ultimately it's an expansion of player choice. And as a parent myself, I think player choice is a great thing. It allows them to take whichever path is best for them. And that decision, by the way, is unique and different for every player, every family, every organization. There's a lot of different factors that go into things. And I think that at the end of the day, it allows for more and more players to have choice. And I think you look at a player like Aucoin, who was drafted so high, certainly his dad, in a great family, what an amazing family they are, and their different connections to the hockey world, and knowing that there's going to be a great path for him in the OHL. Certainly for Saginaw to take someone like Roscoe in the second round, I think it was a great pick. Certainly I was very impressed by him when I watched him play at the NCDP camp here in Michigan last month. Bergeron I thought was an excellent pick by Windsor. And again, it's a case where some of these players, depending on where they're from in the States, if you're from Southeast Michigan and you're drafted by Windsor, as Bergeron was, it's a great, I think, opportunity for Ty and his family there too. So I'm really curious to see not just how things look at the start of next year, but bookmark this draft class and then look at it 2 and 3 years down the line, and then see how how everything nets out. I thought one of the other interesting things was to see Sikora drafted. Of course, he's been playing in the USHL, so he's drafted in the OHL. And by the way, he's NHL draft eligible this summer. So a rare case where you might be picked in the OHL draft and the NHL draft in the same calendar year. This is, my friends, very much a new era.
Absolutely. It's certainly very interesting as it all plays out. John, how do you explain to your American friends that Canada stops for the World Junior Hockey Championships every year. It's such an event. It takes over the holidays. How do you explain that to people who maybe aren't as familiar in the hockey world?
No, it's a great question, Terry, and I think that it's becoming more and more common that we in the States talk about it. Certainly the success of Team USA speaks for itself as to why it's become more of a major event. I'm really lucky to be a small part of the way the NHL Network covers the event and help tell the stories of the players on Team USA and the event itself. But it's the sort of event where, I guess, to use one of the phrases you hear from kids on social media now, if you know, you know. And if you're in it, if you're there, if you're watching it, if you've ever had a chance to go to a World Juniors, it gets into your heart. And then it's almost as though, and we all know this who love junior hockey, your circadian rhythm, your rhythm of the year tells you, okay, right around U.S. Thanksgiving, late November, who's going to camp, who got in, who should have gotten in that wasn't in, and we all have that conversation every year. I was there. Honestly, one of my favorite sports memories that I've ever experienced was the medal round in Halifax 2 years ago, and to see it in a great junior hockey rink with those amazing fans in Atlantic Canada, I thought was just an amazing experience for me. And of course the golden goal and Gunther and everything that was going on in the building that night was just a very, very special memory. There's still there, and you know now, I can tell you how into it American hockey fans are. That whenever I mention that tournament, they still say, yeah, at least one or two of those disallowed goals should have been goals for us in the semifinal. So that's how you know. That's how you know that Americans are now really starting to take this tournament into our hearts as well.
Oh, nobody ever debates who should be on the team and who was left off, right? Those conversations never happen.
That doesn't happen, right? I've never heard of that being a thing.
Well, looking ahead, the OHL playoffs continue to roll on. You talked about keeping a close eye on the Windsor Spitfires. They're dealing with the London Knights as another team that's going to be contending for the Western Conference. But this Windsor team, unlike London last year, who were the OHL champions, this Windsor team, talk about quite a turnaround. Had the first overall pick last year, selected Ethan Belchez, and then they win their division this year, now battling with the Kitchener Rangers in round 2. An incredible turnaround for the Spits.
Really is, and you mentioned I was very honored and thanked the Spitfires for welcoming me to be an honorary coach. I put this in air quotes at their skills competition. So I show up to the rink, we're hanging out in the dressing room before we go on the ice, and I'm looking around saying, I thought I was here for hockey. This is a basketball team. This is a basketball team. How tall? Greentree, Belchez, Nesbitt, these guys are massive. And I just remember thinking to myself, this is going to be a tough out in the playoffs. I love AJ Spellacy. I certainly, talking about the World Juniors, I think he should be a major part of Team USA next year. Really impressed by his athleticism. He just, again, a former football player from Ohio and what the OHL has meant in his journey. But I was just so impressed by the physicality and the athleticism of this team. Again, a lot of hockey between now and then. But if they end up seeing London during a playoff series at some point in the Western Conference, my goodness, that's going to be some amazing hockey. I just think Greentree is an amazing leader who really has a knack for scoring big goals. I think Cristoforo very solid there on the blue line as well. And I think the goaltending has been more than solid so far in these OHL playoffs. That's a dangerous team. I just think how, and certainly Protas, what he's been able to do, another guy that really is just a physical specimen. I was just so impressed by their organization and the roster that Bill's put together. I think they're as good as any team I've seen in junior hockey this season.
John Morosi joining us here. And John, one thing I'm having a little challenge with right now is starting to feel a little old when we start to see these second and third generation players coming into the Ontario Hockey League priority selection. As we were talking, the Windsor Spitfires selected Braden Horton out of Shattuck St. Mary's, the son of Nathan Horton. Nathan was chosen second overall the first time we went to an online draft. I met Nathan as a 15-year-old at a junior B game in Thorold. I covered him in Oshawa. I know even in baseball, you saw Vladdy Sr. and Vladdy Jr. Guerrero, of course. I'm sure it's interesting. We see these bloodlines. You mentioned Socorro a few moments ago, and I'm sure it's always interesting to see their stories come through as these players now coming into the OHL priority selection, who, of course, the familiar last names, and just adds to the stories. And I know we always love to see these stories and how these players come along.
Yeah, Terry, it's a great point. And I have a couple thoughts on this. I think, number one, I do love the ability to have the connection with with a family and understanding maybe how within a family personalities can be different. I always want to make sure when I'm sitting down, whether it's for a World Junior interview or conversation like this, that yes, when we see the name, we all see it. All of us who love hockey, and it's important to kind of note that and let that out there. But also then remember that this is about the young person. This is about his individual journey, and I always want to make sure that when we sit down to do a World Junior interview set, that sure, I'll probably ask about mom and dad, no matter what their career was, whether it was hockey or law enforcement, the business, whatever it ends up being, but then very quickly pivot to the young man's journey, because I think that in that case, each individual player is unique. I also love to be able to get into the storylines of the players that grow up in Arizona or a California or a Texas, where of course we're going to see the under-18 Worlds coming up here just in a couple weeks, with Blake Fiddler from the WHL probably having a key role on Team USA. He of course grew up in Dallas, but he goes up to the Dub to be able to play near where Vern's family is from, his father. So I think it's a really unique story of hockey, to where I do love noting the bloodlines and thinking about how the journeys come together. But I also appreciate someone like Aziz Bouillon, for example, growing up in San Diego and riding with his brothers and his mom at the wheel of the car up and down the California coast to go to skates. It's just, whether you're dealing with LA traffic or you're dealing with a blizzard on the 401, the hockey journey is not easy. And it involves a lot of sacrifice of parents, no matter what their professions happen to be. So you're right. I love the generational stories. I also love the news stories. And I think it's our job, as those of us who love junior hockey and college hockey, to be able to bring those stories out to the forefront.
Well, we appreciate you telling those stories, and I just want to bring it back to your backyard, though. We've seen several players from Detroit Little Caesars selected. They came to the OHL Cup this year. Talk about that group and the minor hockey, the strength of it in Michigan.
It's fantastic, and as you mentioned, so Jaworski was drafted obviously by Sarnia. David Legwan's got a connection there to Caesars too. Landon Jackman, who had moved from the St. Louis area, also selected in the OHL draft last night. To me, I look at often the quality of the coaching, and we do talk about bloodlines. There's no accident that one of the best youth hockey teams in North America is coached by Ryan Kessler, and you've seen, as we all know, and this is not exactly a shock, Ryan's a pretty competitive guy. Not a big surprise here. So he's taken that competitiveness that we saw on the ice from him from so long in the NHL, and he's put that into coaching now. And so he's got this amazing team. You saw the Junior Red Wings go out to the Brick last year, and Christian Kolarek, who's son of Chad Kolarek, who had a phenomenal tournament there at the Brick. So you do see a lot of the names, and when you're around the rinks here in Michigan, you always hear about it, how Caesars is playing and the amount of talent here. Players that have moved in here. You also saw, in the case of a number of players too, Bergeron played for Honeybake. So it's not just Caesars that's producing really high-level talent that's allowing players to get selected in the OHL priority selection or go to the NCDP, go to college hockey. So certainly I'm always impressed whether the name of the coach is Kessler or Osgood or Legwand. These are all names that we know. And if you're growing up in Michigan, so close to the border, you're very, very fortunate that you get a chance to play a lot of great hockey here. And then, as we were hearing Darren talk about the Silver Sticks, there's so many great tournaments and events right along the border. And so I do get my Nexus pass. It's a lot of work there, going back and forth across the border. I'm very, very grateful to live in a great hockey area and be close to so many great tournaments in junior hockey in Windsor, Sarnia, London, and further east as well.
Well, John, we appreciate the time. Always great to see you around the rink or in situations like this, and we'll talk to you very soon. Always great to talk hockey.
Happy draft weekend, and we'll hopefully be seeing some OHL playoff games here between now and the end of the year. All the best, guys.
Absolutely. There's John Morosi joining us here from the NHL Network. And